Hey guys, and welcome back to a new video. We have learned how we can interact with views, how we can change the attributes of the views, how we can make them function, and so on. But we didn't really dive deeper within the attributes of a view, especially after learning about the find view by ID, view binding, and data binding. It's time to dive deeper within the attributes of our common views and the common views that we use within our Android applications. So starting from this video and the next few videos, we're going to learn about the common views and their attributes. Starting first with the text view. So the text view is nothing but a view that can contain a plain text to, for example, describe the current screen, have description to an image, or contain the username and the user description, for example. And in Android applications, there's nearly no Android app or Android screen that doesn't have a text view within it. So now let's learn about the attributes of the text view. So I'm just going to drop a text view here, and I'm going to make it centered horizontally and attach the top of this text view to the top of the parent with 32 margin dp on the top side. Now let's have a revision of the known attributes that we have used before. So we know that the text attribute is used to give text to this text view. And for example, here I can change my text view to have value of asterisk coding. We also know that we can use the text color to specify a color to our text view. For example, here from the color resource, or you can just choose any color and open the color picker to choose your color. And for convenience, I'm going to create a new color resource in order to know how we can create a color. So go to the values, first res values, then the colors. And here we are going to create a new color by opening the color tag. Then we give a name to our color. So for example, cobalt. And finally, we give the value or the hex value of this color. So I don't really know the hex value of the cobalt, so I'm just going to give it a white color. Then I'm going to change it from the color picker here, somewhere around here. Now let's go back to our activity main XML file. And instead of this hex value, I'm going to refer to the color with the @color / and the cobalt color that we just created. We also know how we can give styling to this text view with the text style attribute. And here we can give it bold, for example, or italic, or we just can combine multiple values. Like I can give it bold and just add this sign here and add the other value, which is in this case italic. You can see it's bold and italic at the same time. We also know how we can change the text size of this text with the text size attribute. And here we're going to give it a value with the SP unit, so around 20s or 26 SP. And finally, let's for example give it a background. Again, from the color resource, I'm going to use, for example, color purple 200. And then I'm going to add some padding. And we know that padding adds spaces within the bounds of the view. So if I add padding here to the text, you can see the changes, padding around 16 dp. You can see the changes here. It just makes the background away from the actual text of this text view with 16 dp. And now we're going to change the alignments or the alignment of this text view with the text alignment attribute that changes the alignment of the text view. You can see we have multiple values. We have center, text start, text end, gravity, invert, view end, view start. In order to affect the text view, let's just make it fill the whole width of the parent. And here we're going to make it text end, for example. You can see it moves to the end of the screen. Text start, which is the default. You can use center to center the text. Alternatively, we could use the gravity, which also sets the gravity of the content of the view relatively to its bounds. So the width of this text view fills the width of the parent. And if we use the gravity, it will set the inner content of this text. So you can see here we can add start, which will set the content of this text view to the start. But in this case, we have the text alignment, so we have to delete it. And you can see it takes effect. It makes the gravity at start. You can make it center horizontally, like so. You can make it at the end. Or for example, center vertically, it will make it centered, but we have to fill the space of the parent, for example, with 0 dp for the height. You can see it's centered vertically. And if you, for instance, want to combine multiple values for the gravity, you can also add this sign here, and you can make it centered horizontally and centered vertically as well. Let's just get back our view to make it wrap the content of the height and remove the gravity, and I'll remove the bottom constraint of this view. Now let's also play around with other attributes, like we have the typeface attribute here, which specifies the font style for this text. So if you, for example, add the typeface, you can see we have the surf, we have the monospace, we have the sans. And if you, for example, want to have specific font for your text view, then you can use the font family attribute. And here you can specify your own font, for example, sans serif or casual font, or any font from this list right here. And if you, for example, want to include some font that is not already within the list, that is not already a default font for any project, then you can add your own font by going to the res here, right click, new Android resource file, and change resource type to font. I'm just gonna name it font, and this is gonna create a new XML font file that we can specify here. And within this file we can specify our own font style, font weight, and font size, for example. However, in this video I'm not gonna cover this here, but I will leave a link to the description to the official documentations if you want to check that out. So what if you have a file or font file that you want to include within your Android project, like TTF extension file that you want to use within your project? Then you're gonna have to add this file within the font resource directory here. And for example, I downloaded the Roboto font here from Google Fonts website, and I'm just gonna drag or copy this here and paste it on the font. Make sure you rename it to small letters, Roboto Black it's called, and click OK. Now if we go back to our activity main XML file, we can refer to our new font by font/Roboto Black, and you can see our text is adapting to the changes. We've also seen how we can add a drawable to our text view in the previous videos with the drawable attribute, which adds just a drawable to this text view and make the text view as a text within an image at the same time, so it just makes it as a single entity. And you can see here you can add a drawable to the start of the text view or drawable at the end of the text view. For example, I'm going to add some icon that I made. I see download. You can see you can add the icon here just before the text. Now if you want to add some spacings between the icon and the text, you can use the drawable padding, which adds some space between the icon and the text, for example around 16 dp. You can see here the icon is 16 dp away from the text. Additionally, if you want to change the color of the icon, you can use the drawable tint attribute, which changes the color of the icon. So for example here I'm just gonna choose color white. You can see the changes here happening on the icon. So we learned how we can change the text size with the text size attribute here. Alternatively, you can use an attribute called text appearance, which just changes the appearance of the text. So for this, you can refer to the text appearance here from the styles, which comes from the material library, which is included already in your project. See here we have text appearance title. Let's just delete the text size. Title, we have large, makes it larger. We have small, we have medium, and we have, for example, display, which is just bigger than the large. You can see it gets bigger. Moreover, we can change the text caps or the caps of the text to make it all caps with the text all caps attribute. And here you can set it to true, it will make the text all capital letters. Make it to false, make the text the normal value which you specified within the text view. So it doesn't matter if you change this text view to asterisk coding all small. Once you make it true, it will be all capital. We also have a very interesting attribute that is called auto link, which lets you open the links if there were any links within the text view. So for example here I'm going to have a link to YouTube, www.youtube.com, and I'm going to run the application, and you can see already before running the application, you can see that it turns into a link that you can click on when you run your application, or the user can click on, and it will take him or her to the YouTube web page. And here you can specify if you, for example, want to open certain type of links like email only, or for example map, or phone number or the web. This is similar to the auto link that we see in apps like WhatsApp. You can see that the WhatsApp converts any text that has some number or a date or an email or a map or a website into a link that the user can click on. So if we have, for example, here auto link true or auto link all, and if we, for example, I'm going to say check out my latest video, and here I'm going to include a website, Google website, you can see that only the text that is considered to be a link will be clickable, and the rest of the text will not be clickable, like this one here. So if you just run the application to check this out, and as you can see here, just the text is normal, but the text that is considered to be a link is converted to a clickable text or a clickable link that you can click on, and it will take you to that page. And now if you, for example, have a specific use case to make your text within the text view within a single line or 2 lines or a defined amount of lines, then you can use an attribute called max lines. And before using it, let me just clear the space here for this attribute, because here we have a lot of attributes and just a lot of mess. Let me just delete all these attributes. I'm going to delete the lines and the globals, the appearance of the text, the font of the text. Now let's set the max lines of text view to be 2 lines. However, the text of our text view here doesn't exceed 2 lines, so let's just make it bigger by, for example, copying and pasting Google. And here now what we're going to do is add the single line attribute, and here you can choose if you want to make it true. It will only be a single line, and it will add 3 lines at the end of the text to notify the user that this text is not yet complete. There is some cut portion of this text, or this text has been truncated from the original text. Alternatively, you could use the max lines attribute to determine how many lines specifically you want to add. For example, 2 lines or a single line and so on. You can see that the max lines doesn't automatically add the 3 dots at the end of the text. This is because you have to use another attribute along with the max lines, which is called ellipse size. And ellipse size is used to specify the way in which the text that exceeds the bounds of the text view should be shown on screen. So you can, for example, set the ellipse size value to start. You can see it adds 3 dots at the start of the text. You can also add it at the end of the text with by specifying end to the ellipse size, or at the middle of the text by using the middle value here. Or alternatively, you could make the text animate through or animate automatically from the start of it to the end of it by using the ellipse size marquee along with the single line attribute. So you have to use these 2 attributes. Set it to true, remove the max lines here, and then you can go to your main activity. You can see we're using binding, view binding. Refer to our text view here, which is called binding.textview4, and you have to make it selected. So by default it's not selected. Use the is selected, make it true, and then run your application. And you can see it just animates through the text from the start to the end of the text automatically. Even if you have a very long text, it will animate from the start of the text to the end of the text. And now let's have a practical example where we change the attributes of a text view when we click on a button. So we will have a very long text view that we will set to a single line. So let's just start by adding our text view from the palette. It will be centered just like before, and attached to the top of parent with 32 margin dB. And here is going to be just text view, and for the text is going to be our sample data text from the previous videos, sample text. And now let's add a button. So I'm going to add a button just underneath, attach it to the text and attach it to the parent, then center it horizontally within the parent. And for the bias, I'll just leave it right there. Or instead, I'll just attach the text to the button here, like so. And now for the text, I will make the text to match constraint for the height. And then the text size is going to increase around 30 sp. And now for the lines, so I'm gonna make it max lines, only one line, and that's it. Let's go to our main activity, and here we are using view binding. So what we want to do is whenever we click on the button for the first time, we want to change the text color to red, the text style to bold, and the max line of the text to the maximum number of lines, or the biggest maximum value. And whenever we click on the button again, we want to undo our changes. So for this, we will first attach click listener to our button. And now how we check if we clicked on this button. So the first thing, we have to have something that is tracking if we clicked on a button or not, something like a flag. And for this flag here, I will use an integer. So I'll just name it number equal to 0. So here we will first check if the number is equal to 0. And if this is the case, we want to change the text color. So set text color, we can change the text color of the text view with the set text color. And here we can pass a color integer like 0xFFFFF, which is white in this case, or a color from the color class, which is also an integer. So here we have the red color, we want to set the red color. And for the style, we can use the TextView typeface. You can see here we have this typeface. Typeface is going to equal to typeface dot default bold. We want to make it bold once we click on it. And for the max line, lastly for the max lines, we want to make it the maximum number of lines, and you can do this by using the integer class and getting the maximum value from the integer class. And if you just press Ctrl and left click on the value, you can see it's a very big number. It's 2 raised to the 31st power minus 1, so it's a very big number that will make our text view fill the whole space that it needs to. Now we want to increase the number by 1, so in this case we can also click on the number again. So the number now is not 0, which means it's 1. So here we want to make the text just like before. So we will set the default values for the text color, and here is going to be gray. And for the typeface, TextView.typeface is going to be typeface.default. And finally for the max lines, so the default value for the max lines that we set within our layout was 1 line. So it's going to be 1. And now we want to decrement our number by 1. So it's just back to its old state, and it will be 0. So whenever we click on it again, we can access this line of code. So let's just revise this once again. So we have this var number here, and now we have a click listener set to the button. If we click on the button and the number is equal to 0, then we will change the text color to red, the text style to bold, the text max lines to maximum value from the integer class, and we will increment the number by 1, which is going to be 1. And now if you click on the button again, so this case is not true anymore, we will move here to the else block, and here we will set the color of the text to gray, the style of the text to default, and the max line of the text to 1, and we will decrement the number by 1. And for the third time, if you click on the button again, we will move to the if block right here. Now let's just run the application to test this out. You can see this here. Once you click on the button, the text fills the whole space. It's turned to red and it's now bold. If we click on it again, it's back to its normal state, default for everything, for the color, for the style, and for the maximum lines or maximum number of lines. So that was it for today. The TextView has a lot of attributes that we cannot cover within a single video. However, I will leave a link to the description to the official documentations where you can read it at your leisure. And I want to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.